Hey everyone, welcome back to Set for You. In today's video, I'll be working through the Edexcel GCSE Higher Maths June 2025 Paper 3 exam. So grab a pen, some paper and a calculator and let's get started. In the first question, we are told that the table shows information about the distances that 60 people travel to work. Draw a frequency polygon for the information in the table. So all we need to do for this question is plot the midpoint of the distances against the frequency. So the midpoint of 0 and 10 is 5, so I'm going to plot the point 5, 12, which is there. And then we need to plot 15, 25, which is here. And then 25, 10, which is here. And 35, 8, which is here. And then 45, 5, which is here. And then the final step is to join all these points. So we'll join the first 2 points, the next 2 points, the next 2 points, and the final 2 points. And that is the final answer. In question 23, we are told that Ben is trying to make m the subject of the equation p equals m over 3 plus 5. Here is his working. What mistake has Ben made? That we have the equation p minus 5 equals m over 3, which was obtained by subtracting 5 from both sides. So that part is correct, so I'll put a tick there. However, for the second line of the equation, he's multiplied both sides by 3, which is correct for the right side of the equation. But for the left side of the equation, he needs to multiply p minus 5 by 3, so there should be a bracket there. So the mistake that he made was that he didn't multiply both terms on the left side by 3. In the final part of this question, we are told to factorize fully this expression. So the highest common factor of the number 2 and 4 is 2, so we can put the number 2 outside. And the letters x and y appear in both terms, so we can put x and y next to 2. And so to determine the terms in our brackets, we need to divide 2x cubed y by 2xy. So hopefully you can see that this just simplifies to x cubed divided by x, which is simply x squared. And the final term in our brackets can be determined by dividing 4xy squared by 2xy. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and the x's cancel, and y squared divided by y is y. And that is the final answer. In question 24, we are told that Mia pays £25 for 200 oranges. Mia puts the oranges into bags. She puts 5 oranges into each bag. Mia sells all the bags of oranges for £1 each bag. Work out Mia's percentage profit. So given as Mia puts 5 oranges into each bag, we need to divide the total number of oranges, which is 200, by the total number of oranges she puts into each bag, and that gives us the value of the number of bags. So in this case, that will be 40 bags. And then we need to multiply this value by £1 because that's how much Mia sells all the bags of oranges for. So 40 multiplied by £1 equals £40. And finally, to determine the percentage profit, we need to subtract £25 from £40 and divide that value by the original price, which was £25, and multiply this answer by 100. And that gives us a value of 60%. So Mia's percentage profit is 60. In question 25, we are told that in London, 2 kilograms of carrots cost £3.75. In New York, 5 pounds of carrots cost $4.90 US. The conversion rate is £1 equals 1.20 US, and 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds. In which city are carrots better value for money, London or New York? You must show how you get your answer. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply £3.75 by 1.20 to convert it into dollars. And that gives us a value of $4.50 US. So in London, 2 kilograms of carrots is equivalent to $4.50 US. So 1 kilogram of carrots can be bought for $2.25 US. And if we look at New York, the first thing I'm going to do is divide 5 pounds by 2.2 pounds, and that approximately gives us a value of 2.27 kilograms. So in New York, 2.27 kilograms of carrots equals $4.90 US. Therefore, 1 kilogram of carrots can be determined by dividing 4.90 by 2.27, and that gives us a value of $2.16 US. So in London, 1 kilogram of carrots costs $2.25 US, and in New York, 1 kilogram of carrots costs $2.16 US. Therefore, the carrots are better value for money in New York. In question 26, Karim rounds a number n to one decimal place. The result is 23.8. Complete the error interval for n. So given as it's 1 decimal place, I'm going to divide 0.1 by 2, and that gives us a value of 0.05. So 23.8 minus 0.05 equals 23.75, and that will be my lower bound, and 23.8 plus 0.05 equals 23.85, and that will be my upper bound. So the final answers are 23.75 and 23.85. In question 27, we are told that a plane takes 2 hours and 24 minutes to fly from Luton to Alicante. The plane flies a distance of 1,512 kilometers. Work out the average speed of the plane. Give your answer in kilometers per hour. So the first thing we need to do is convert the minutes into hours. So 60 minutes equals 1 hour. So 24 minutes in hours can be obtained by dividing 60 by itself and multiplying that by 24. So in other words, we have 1 times 24 over 60, and that gives us a value of 0.4 hours. And remember that speed equals distance divided by time. So the distance traveled is 1,512 kilometers divided by the total time, which is 2 plus 24 minutes, which we've calculated to be 0.4 hours. And we know that all of this is in hours. And when you put that into your calculator, you should get an answer of 630 kilometers per hour. In question 28, we are told that ABC is a straight line. The point A has coordinates 2, 7, point B has coordinates 8, 12, BC equals a half AB. Find the coordinates of point C. So the first step is to determine the x coordinate of point C, and using the formula given to us in the question, we can simply state that xc minus 8 equals a half multiplied by 8 minus 2. So xc minus 8 equals 3. Therefore, the x coordinate of C equals 11. And to determine the y coordinate of the point C, we can simply use the diagram again and the equation. We have yc minus 12 equals a half multiplied by 12 minus 7. So yc minus 12 equals 2.5. Therefore, yc equals 14.5. So the final answers are 11 and 14.5. In question 29, we are given a trapezium ABCD. The length AB is 12 centimeters and the length AD is 8 centimeters. The trapezium has an area of 112 centimeters squared. Work out the perimeter of the trapezium. So the first thing we know is that the area of the trapezium, which is a half multiplied by A plus B, which are your parallel lengths, multiplied by the perpendicular height, equals 112. So if we substitute the lengths of the perimeter into this equation, we can hopefully determine one of the parallel lengths. So in this case, we have a half multiplied by the length DC plus 12 multiplied by the perpendicular height, which is AD, which is also 8 centimeters, and that equals 112. And if we simplify the left hand side, we have 4 times DC plus 12, and that equals 112. So if we divide both sides by 4, we have DC plus 12, and that equals 28. So DC equals 28 minus 12, which is 16 centimeters. And in order to determine the perimeter of this trapezium, we need to work out all the lengths. So the only missing length that we have is BC. So if I draw a straight line from BC going up to the length DC, I'm going to label this point as P. And the length PC can be determined by subtracting the length AB from the entire length DC. So PC equals DC minus AB, which is simply 16 centimeters minus 12 centimeters, and that equals 4 centimeters. And if we look at triangle BPC, we can determine the length BC by using Pythagoras' theorem. So length BC can simply be determined by obtaining the square root of 4 squared and 8 squared, and that equals a value of 4 root 5 centimeters. So the perimeter is simply 8 centimeters plus 12 centimeters plus 4 root 5 centimeters plus 16 centimeters, and that equals 44.9 centimeters to 3 significant figures. So the final answer is 44.9. In the first part of question 9, we are told to write 5.73 times 10 to the power of 6 as an ordinary number. So when you put this into your calculator, you get 5,730,000. In the second part of this question, we are told to write 0.035 in standard form. So for a number to be in standard form, it must be in the form a times 10 to the power of n, where a is less than 10 but greater than or equal to 1, and n is an integer. So the closest number we can write this to is 3.5, And to get from 3.5 to 0.035, we need to divide by 100, so we're going to multiply this value by 10 to the power of minus 2. In question 10, we are told to use our calculator to work out this fraction and to give our answer correct to 3 significant figures. And once we put this into our calculator, we get this value. And given as we need to round our answer correct to 3 significant figures, we need to look at the third and fourth significant figures, which in this case are 5 and 8. And given as 8 is greater than 5, we need to round the number 5 up. So in this case, our final answer is 12.6. In the first part of question 11, we are told to find the value of n. So if we focus on the powers, and using the law of indices, whenever you multiply two indices with the same base, you need to add their powers. So in this case, our numerator can be written as n plus 20. And given as we are dividing by 3 to the power of 8, we need to subtract 8. And that equals 14, which is the power on the right side of this equation. Therefore, n plus 12 equals 14. And so to obtain the final value for n, we need to subtract 12 from both sides. So n equals 2. In the final part of this question, we are told to write this expression in the form am to the power of b, where a and b are integers. So using the law of indices, we can split this into 64 to the power of 2/3, multiplied by m to the power of 12, or raised to the power of 2/3. And so 64 to the power of 2/3 is 16. And using the law of indices, we can multiply the power 12 by 2/3. So this is m to the power of 12 times 2/3. And 12 times 2/3 is 8. So the final answer is 16m to the power of 8. In question 12, we are told that the price of a holiday is increased by 10%. After the increase, the price of the holiday is £440. Jim says 10% of £440 is £44, so the price of the holiday before the increase was £396. In the first part of this question, we are asked, is Jim correct? Explain your answer. So given as the new price of the holiday is £440 after the 10% increase, this means that £440 can be represented as 110%. And in order to get to the original price, we need to divide this value by 110 and multiply it by 100, and that will give us a value of 400, so Jim is incorrect. In the second part of this question, we are told that Tina sells bikes. In November, Tina sold 25% fewer bikes than she sold in October. In December, Tina sold 50% more bikes than she sold in November. In December, Tina sold 180 bikes. How many bikes did Tina sell in October? So given as she sold 25% fewer bikes in November than she did in October, we can subtract this value from 100%, giving us 75%. And as a decimal, we can write that as 0.75. So to obtain the number of bikes that she sold in November, we need to multiply this value by the number of bikes she sold in November, which we'll write as x, giving us 0.75x. And given as she sold 50% more bikes in December than she sold in November, this means that the number of bikes she sold in December is 150% more than the number of bikes she sold in November. So we can multiply the value of 0.75x by 1.5, and that gives us a value of 1.125x. Therefore, 1.125x can be represented as 180 bikes. And to obtain the value of x, we need to divide 180 by 1.125, and that gives us a value of 160. So the final answer is 160. In question 13, we are given some graphs. Each equation in the table is the equation of one of the graphs. Complete the table. So my advice to all students when working through questions like this is to always start with the equations that you know. So we'll start with y equals 5 minus x squared, which is clearly an inverted U shape. So we know that that's going to be graph B. And for y equals x cubed, that is simply graph E. And for the last two equations, we're going to start with y equals 2 over x, which is an inversely proportional equation. So this means that as x increases, y decreases, giving us graph C. And finally, for y equals 3 to the power of x, that's an exponential curve, so that would be graph H. In question 14, we are given a triangle ABC. Calculate the area of triangle ABC. Give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. So the area of a triangle can be obtained using the formula a half AB sine C. And using the values in our triangle, we have a value of A, which is 8.3, multiplied by the value of B, which is 9.8, multiplied by sine of our angle, which is 35. And when we put all of these values into our calculator, we get this. And so in order to round our answer correct to 3 significant figures, we need to look at the 4th significant figure, which is 2, and given as it's less than 5, we can keep the number 3 the same, so our final answer is 23.3. In question 15, we are told that there are only 7 blue pens and 3 red pens in a box. Raja takes at random one of the pens. He notes the color of the pen and puts the pen back into the box. Raja does this 2 more times. Show that the probability that Raja takes at least 2 blue pens is 98 over 125. So we know that there are a total of 10 pens in the box, and the probability of him taking a blue pen is 7 over 10. So the probability of him taking a red pen must be 3 over 10. And given as he puts the pen back into the box and takes another pen, the probability of him taking a blue pen is 7 over 10, and the probability of him taking another red pen is 3 over 10. And we can repeat the same for the bottom half of our tree, and all of this will represent the second pick. And on the third pick, we get the exact same answers because he puts the pen back into the box. So the probability of Raja taking at least 2 blue pens can be represented by the probability of him taking 3 blue pens, a blue pen, a red pen and a blue pen, a red pen, a blue pen and a blue pen, or a blue pen, a blue pen and a red pen. And after using our probability tree, we get a final answer of 98 over 125. In question 16, we are given a diagram with a solid shape made from a cylinder and a cone. The cone has a base radius of 8 centimeters. The cylinder has a radius of 8 centimeters. The vertical height of the cone is 3 times the height of the cylinder. The volume of the solid shape is 640 pi centimeter cubed. Work out the vertical height of the cone. So the first thing I'm going to do is label the diagram using the information I've been given. And the reason I've labeled the height of the cylinder x is because it is unknown. We can then obtain an equation for the volume of the cone using the formula given to us in the question. And after substituting all these values into the equation of our cone, we get a final answer of 64 pi x. And the volume of a cylinder can be obtained using the formula pi r squared h. And using the information given to us in the question, we can write this as pi times 8 squared times x, and that gives us 64 pi x. And given as the volume of the solid shape is 640 pi centimeter cubed, we can add the volume of the cone and the volume of the cylinder and set that equal to 640 pi centimeter cubed. And once we simplify the left hand side, we can write that as 128 pi x and set that equal to 640 pi. So x can be obtained by dividing 640 pi by 128 pi, giving us a value of 5 centimeters. And given as the height of the cone is 3 times the height of the cylinder, we can multiply this value of 5 centimeters by 3, giving us a final answer of 15 centimeters. So our vertical height is 15 centimeters. In question 17, we are told to solve this equation. So the first thing we need to do is write this as a single fraction by multiplying the fraction on the left, numerator and denominator, by the denominator of the fraction on the right, and multiplying the fraction on the right, numerator and denominator, by the denominator on the left. And now that we've done this, we can multiply both sides by the denominator, and then we can expand and simplify both sides of this equation. So we have 15x squared plus 5x minus 6x squared plus 2x, and that equals 9x squared plus 3x minus 3x minus 1. And once we move all the terms on the right hand side of this equation onto the left hand side, and after simplifying the left hand side of the equation, we are left with 7x plus 1 equals 0. So if we subtract 1 from both sides, we have 7x equals minus 1, and x equals minus 1 over 7. So the final answer is minus 1 over 7. In question 18, we are told that Magda carried out a survey to find out the drinks that people like. She asked 100 people if they like coffee or tea or hot chocolate, and we are given all this information. In the first part of this question, we are told to complete the Venn diagram for this information. So the first thing we know is that 32 people like all drinks, so 32 can go in the middle, and 15 people like coffee and hot chocolate but not tea, so that will be the section that connects C and H without T. And 43 people like coffee and tea, so that will belong to the section connecting coffee and tea. And given as 32 is in this section already, we can subtract this value from 43, and that gives us a value of 11. 39 people like tea and hot chocolate, so that will be the section connecting tea and hot chocolate, but given as 32 is already in this section, we can subtract this value from 39, and that gives us 7. and 67 people like coffee. So if we look at the circle belonging to coffee, there's only one space that we haven't filled out. So in order to determine the number in this space, we need to subtract 11, 32 and 15 from 67, and that gives us a value of 9. And 58 people like hot chocolate. So if we're looking at the circle belonging to hot chocolate, to determine the unknown value in the space at the bottom, we need to subtract 15, 32 and 7 from 58, and that gives us a value of 4. And we are told that 5 people like only tea, so that means that 5 goes in the top right. And after adding all the values in our Venn diagram, we get an answer of 83. However, Magda asked 100 people if they liked either coffee, tea or hot chocolate, so we need to subtract 83 from 100, and that gives us a value of 17, which goes outside. And that is the Venn diagram for this information. In the second part of this question, we are told that one of the people is chosen at random. Given that this person likes coffee, find the probability that this person also likes hot chocolate. So the total number of people that like coffee is 67. And given as we are looking for the probability that a person likes hot chocolate as well, we need to consider hot chocolate and coffee. And this value can be obtained by adding the values in the interjoining section between hot chocolate and coffee, and that is 15 plus 32. And that gives us a value of 47. So the probability that a person likes coffee and also likes hot chocolate is 47 over 67. In question 19, there are some sheets of paper in a pile. The height of the pile is 10.4 centimeters correct to the nearest millimeter. The thickness of each sheet of paper is 0.17 millimeters correct to 2 significant figures. Calculate the upper bound for the number of sheets of paper in the pile. The first thing I'm going to do is represent the height as h and the thickness as t. And given as the height of the pile is 10.4 centimeters correct to the nearest millimeter, we can divide 1 millimeter by 2, and that gives us a value of 0.5. And the thickness of each sheet of paper is 0.17 millimeters correct to 2 significant figures. So 2 significant figures can be represented as 0.01, and I'm going to half that value to get 0.005. And to determine the number of sheets of paper in the pile, we need to divide the height of the pile by the thickness of each sheet of paper. So now that we know this is the formula we need to use, we now need to determine the upper and the lower bounds for the height and the thickness. So the lower bound of the height can be determined by subtracting 0.5 from 10.4, and that gives us 10.35. And the upper bound of the height can be determined by adding 0.5 to 10.4, and that gives us 10.45. We can use the same methodology to determine the lower and upper bound for the thickness. So if we subtract 0.005 from 0.17, we get 0.165, and if we add 0.005 onto 0.17, we get 0.175. And to determine the upper bound for the number of sheets of paper in the pile, we need to divide the upper bound of the height of the pile by the lower bound of the thickness of each sheet of paper. And remember that the thickness of each sheet of paper is given to us in millimeters, so we need to convert that into centimeters by dividing by 10. And when you put this into your calculator, you should get an answer of 633.3. So the final answer is 633 sheets. In question 20, we are told that A, B, C and D are points on a circle with center O. Find the sides of angle OBC. Write down any circle theorems that you use. So the first thing we can identify is that in order to obtain the angle DOB, we need to multiply the angle DAB by 2, because angles at the center are twice the angle at the circumference. So we get a value of 160 degrees. Angle DCB can be obtained by subtracting 80 degrees from 180 degrees, because opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral add up to 180 degrees. And finally, to obtain the angle OCB, we can add all the angles in the quadrilateral DOBC and subtract them from 360 degrees, because the total angle in a quadrilateral is 360 degrees. So the final answer is 57 degrees. In question 21, we are told to solve algebraically the simultaneous equations. So the first thing I'm going to do is make y the subject from the second equation. So I'll let y equal 2 minus 3x, and then I'll substitute this value of y into the first equation. So 3x squared plus 2 multiplied by 2 minus 3x all squared, so I'll just write that as 2 brackets, equals 44. So 3x squared plus 2 times 4 minus 12x plus 9x squared equals 44. And once we expand our brackets, we have 3x squared plus 8 minus 24x plus 18x squared, and that equals 44. So if we move 44 to the left hand side and simplify the entire left hand side, we get 21x squared minus 24x minus 36. And if we divide this entire equation by 3, we get 7x squared minus 8x minus 12, and that equals 0. And after factorizing this, we have 7x plus 6 multiplied by x minus 2, and that will equal 0. And by setting both brackets equal to 0 and solving for x, we have x equals minus 6 over 7 and x equals 2. And we can substitute these values of x into our equation for y, which we wrote as y equals 2 minus 3x. And after substituting our values into this equation, we get 32 over 7 and minus 4. And these are the final answers. In question 22, we are told that C is a circle with center 0, 0. The straight line with equation 3x minus 2y equals 52 is the tangent to C at the point P. Find the coordinates of P. So the first thing I'm going to do is write the straight line equation in the form y equals mx plus c. So if I add 2y to both sides, I have 3x equals 2y plus 52. So 2y equals 3x minus 52. And after dividing this by 2, I have y equals 3 over 2x minus 26. Therefore, the gradient of this straight line is 3 over 2. And to make this question a lot easier to solve, I'm going to sketch all of this on a diagram. And given as the straight line is a tangent to C at the point P, we know that P is going to be right here with coordinates x, y. And using our circle theorems, we know that the radius will always meet the tangent at 90 degrees. So the gradient of the radius is minus 2 over 3. And using the equation y equals mx plus c, we can determine the equation of our radius. So given as it passes through the point 0, 0 and it has a gradient of minus 2 over 3, when we substitute these values into this equation, we get a value of c equals 0. So the equation of our radius is minus 2 over 3x. And given as the point P is the intersection of the radius and the straight line, we can set the equation of the radius equal to the equation of the straight line to determine the values of x and y. So in order to solve for x, I'm going to move minus 26 to the left and minus 2 over 3x to the right. So 13 over 6x equals 26. Therefore, x equals 12. And now that we have this value of x, we can substitute it into either equation for y. So I'll just go with y equals minus 2 over 3x. So y equals minus 2 over 3 multiplied by 12, and that gives us a value of minus 8. So the coordinates of point P are 12 and minus 8. In the final question, we are given a quadrilateral OACB. ACP is a straight line, M is the midpoint of OA, N is the point on BC such that the ratio of BN to NC is 5:3, and we are given this information. Given that MNP is a straight line, find the value of K. So the first thing I'm going to do is label the diagram using the information I've been given. And given as BN to NC is in a ratio of 5:3, this means that BC can be split into 8 parts, in which 5 parts belong to BN and 3 parts belong to NC. So NC equals 3/8 of BC and BN equals 5/8 of BC. And to determine the vector BC, I can go from B to O, O to A, and A to C, and that equals minus 3B plus A plus 2B, giving us A minus B. And now that I have this vector for BC, I can write NC and BN in terms of A and B. And given that M and P is a straight line, we need to determine the vectors MN and the vectors NP. So starting with MN equals the vector MO plus OB plus BN, and that gives us minus a half A plus 3B plus 5 over 8 times A minus B, and that simplifies to 1 over 8A plus 19 over 8B. And when we expand this, we get this expression. And as mentioned before, M and P is a straight line, so M and P can be determined by adding MN and NP. And this also means that they are collinear. And given as CP lies on the straight line ACP, we can state that AC and CP are collinear, so that means that CP can be written in terms of B. And as stated before, MN and NP are collinear, So that means that the A terms must be the same. And if we compare NP to MN, we can see that the A term in NP is 3 times the A term in MN. So 3 lots of MN equals NP. And after substituting these vectors into this equation, we get this. And after substituting our expression for CP, which is K times 2B, into this equation, we need to solve for K. So 60 over 8B equals K times 2B. So K equals 60 over 8 divided by 2, and that gives us a value of 15 over 4. Thank you all for watching today's video. I hope this walkthrough has helped boost your confidence for upcoming exams. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up as it really supports the channel. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to S.E.T for you for more walkthroughs, engineering insights and STEM inspiration. If you have a question or topic you'd like me to cover, please drop it in the comments. And until next time, keep practicing, stay curious, and I'll see you all in the next video.